But this, oh my days. And see, this is the
Harmy, do
thing.
you feel as if we're giving counselling?
I was
See,
going to say, yeah, I was going to say, we got. I've got a leather sofa here, and I've got one spotlight. I'll go on top of you.
And who are you talking to, by the way? You're talking to Harmy, whose side were relegated for no reason at all. And I've grown up a Somerset
Exactly.
supporter. We were bottom every year throughout my childhood. So,
look,
Surrey
look,
supporter moaning, Lord
no,
almighty.
no, hang on. Surrey have won one T20 tournament in 20 years, and we've won one county championship in about the same amount of time. So,
That's one
we
more than
basically,
Somerset have ever won, mate.
well, look, I am a Fulham supporter,
And
And Harmy
we've been
and
second more
and
times than
yeah,
any
and
county ever. So
Fulham have never won the FA Cup, and this is a point of sport. It's all relative. So I'm not asking for sympathy. There is an
good.
overarching point that I'm about to make, and it is this. Okay, guys. Well, lovely to see you, George. First up, maybe you could tell the viewers or the listeners what exactly happened at Edgbaston for your quarter-final, because it took place at the same time as England were playing a T20. So, I don't even know who won, what happened. So I doubt the listeners do either. Tell us what happened.
Oh, it was a nail biter. It really wasn't. It was a really good pitch. It was the same pitch used for the India International a couple of days later. And Hampshire scored 170-ish. And I didn't think that was enough, to be honest. But they bowled out Warwickshire and won by 100. So, or the best part of. And they looked very, very good. I should say Birmingham, shouldn't I? So I suppose if you bat as Birmingham have this year, you'll always have the possibility you're going to have a day like that. They had one against Yorkshire as well. And Hampshire's attack was good. It had a bit of bite. And they took early wickets. You take wickets in the power play. It's very difficult to recover, isn't it? Hampshire looked like a very strong side, and they were the ones who progressed.
Yeah, Hampshire started poorly, didn't they, in the T20, but have got stronger and stronger as the tournament progressed. And also, what was it, 10,000 there? 48 hours notice, 10,000 at Edgbaston. Surrey would have had the same amount of time to sell their tickets, even less maybe. They had the best part of, I don't know the exact
14,000.
figure, but
14.
was it 14? Well,
Yeah.
look, considering Surrey cleared 20,000 when they've got a bit of a lead up to a game quite comfortably, I think 14,000 for a tournament that people are trying to tell us doesn't matter quite as much. Credit where credit's due. Harmy, from there was no Durham participating this week, but anything catch your eye from the 4 matches that took place?
I thought all the games were sort of, there was some good high skill level in each of the games. And when you look at it, what George mentioned about Hampshire are the look a really good side, and we've said many times, and we actually said on this programme that when Surrey got 8 wins or 9 wins in a row, this is dangerous time because they drop off. The team that finishes fourth comes through, and the momentum into the sort of knockout stages could be sort of valuable. And I think we've seen that with Hampshire. I thought the Surrey Yorkshire game was a very, very good game, but I thought the Lancashire game was a belter as well. I didn't see the Somerset Derbyshire game, but the scores look ridiculous. But I think this competition is still alive. I think, mentioned 48 hours notice. Lancashire had a massive crowd as well, and that looked a picture at the Emirates Old Trafford. So I think all in all, when you look at some of the skill level that was on show, Croft got a magnificent, old guard, magnificent 76 off, what did he get off? 48 balls. It was a good game, but I felt for your boys. I really did, John. I felt for them. I was willing Goffey on, and I was willing the lads on. I thought Will Frayne made a great contribution at the end of the first innings, which just took the game, I think, into Yorkshire's favour. But I thought they were shaking hands after 14 overs. I thought they were ready to shake hands. The Brown Hatters were in the final, but no, I thought Jordan Thompson bowled a great last over. Yorkshire got there.
Well, look, this is the thing with cricket, okay? I think I speak for all of us when we say that our favoured format is Test cricket. It's the format of the game that I suppose I'm the most interested in, but then it goes on longest, so it would be a bit weird if it wasn't like that, I suppose. But if I'm being honest, as a Surrey fan, and I've been watching Surrey since about 1984, my favourite moments as a Surrey fan have been watching limited overs cricket. You know, whether it was Wacko Yunis taking on Kirtley Ambrose, Surrey against Northants in the semi-final of the B&H Cup all those years ago, you know, sitting in the crowd, or whether it was watching T20 stuff, you know, Tim Murtagh running around the outfield with his top off after that bowl off against Warwickshire, or Azhar Mahmood smashing 3-4s from the last 3 balls of the match to win a game for Surrey, or Ali Brown against Glamorgan, or even that ridiculous game where Surrey were like 220 for 1 against Lancashire, chasing 240, and they were bowled out and they lost. You know, these are the games that, if as much as I've loved watching Surrey and County Championship cricket, you know, I go to the County Championship and I just kind of sit there, and of course you see great passages of play, but essentially you're not there for all 4 days and you soak it up and you're just taking, you know, you're just relaxing watching some cricket. When it comes to exciting, you know, ends of games, it's limited over stuff, and sometimes, you know, it's the thing that stays with you isn't the glory, it's the pain, and that was, I would say, the most painful moment I think I've ever experienced as a Surrey fan. It was
Really?
exquisitely painful. I mean, it was up there or down there with, I honestly can't think of a worse moment. I mean, it was pretty painful last year, you know. Gareth Batty playing in his final tournament the year before Surrey had got to the final. This was going to be his final season as a pro. And essentially, Surrey would have qualified if not for Hampshire chasing down 120 in about 5 overs or something, and completely warping the run rate to such a degree. Surrey failed to qualify by 0.005% or something stupid. But this, oh my days. And see, this is
Harmy,
the thing
do you feel as if we're giving counselling?
I was going to say, I've got a leather sofa here, and I've got one spotlight. I'll go on top of you.
And who are you talking to, by the way? You're talking to Harmy, who's side were relegated for no reason at all. And I've grown up a Somerset supporter. We were bottom every year throughout my childhood. So, you know, Surrey supporter moaning, Lord Almighty.
No, hang on. Surrey have won one T20 tournament in 20 years, and we've won one county championship in about the same amount of time. So, you know,
that's one more than Somerset have ever won, mate.
Well, look, I am a Fulham supporter, and
we've been second more times than any county ever.
And Fulham have never won the FA Cup, and you know, this is a point of sport. It's all relative. So I'm not asking for sympathy. There is an overarching point that I'm about to make, and it is this. You know, when I sit back and I hear people say that they like the 100 because they like cricket, I think to myself, well, that, I'm sorry, is disingenuous. Let's move to one side the huge benefits the game has brought to women's cricket, because, you know, I don't want to get embroiled in that. But essentially, by promoting one, you are detracting from another. I am a Surrey member, and I'm a Surrey member that now has to watch all his county cricket pretty much April, May. Actually, that works for me. You know, full transparency, George and I follow the international circuit. So actually, if 4-day cricket was taking place more during the months than it should be, I'd actually miss most of it. So kind of works for me. But essentially, my season now is about T20 and the 50 over cup. 2 tournaments, well, certainly the 50 over cup, Surrey have done reasonably well in. 50 over cup now is just completely pointless. You know, it's been devalued. If you like cricket and that's your reason for liking the 100, well, you are promoting the 100 over the 50 over cup, because Surrey will lose 12 players to the Oval Invincibles and to other teams around the country. As a member, I lose out. My team, Surrey, loses out. As a Newcastle season ticket holder, Harmy, you would not put up with paying your season ticket to go and watch Newcastle and then seeing 12 of your players playing for the North East, you know, Brigadoons in some European Super League. But that is what has been forced upon me as a Surrey member. And then we look at the T20 Blast, right? Now, this is a tournament which I've been really, really enjoying. I've been commentating on it on the Surrey broadcast on the internet. And essentially, we have dazzled. We've been absolutely brilliant. But essentially, we were forced into a situation where, no disrespect to Tom Curran, but Tom Curran, who sat on the sidelines with a stress fracture, was batting at 3 for Surrey. We've lost our captain to England duty because England aren't playing in August, so they've got to play now. We've lost our opening bat, Jason Roy. We've lost our 2 opening bowlers in Sam Curran and Reece Topley. Now, I know Yorkshire have lost players as well. They shouldn't have. They should also have had those players to call upon. But essentially, Surrey have lost 1 game by 1 run and essentially are out of the tournament. And me, as a Surrey fan, that's pretty much it now. It's it was exquisitely painful. I'm throwing my toys out the pram, but there it is. I care about Surrey. And the fact that the Oval Invincibles might go on to win the 100 will not make up for what I went through this week.
I think you do make a valid point, to be fair, and it is a shame.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point.
I think most people would agree that it is a shame that such a good competition has been diluted. And here we are just before finals day, and we're not sure even if England players are going to be released. I hope they are for that for finals day, and it's a real shame that they weren't released for quarterfinals, or most of them weren't. And that tickets. I think that, to be fair, they were 72 hours. They were on sale. But tickets for the 100 went on sale in November.
I think when we look at it and we say it's been devalued, I actually think the cricket community have rallied behind the T20 Blast. I think the cricket community have tried to get to games, and you've seen the crowds that were there. I think it was devalued because the players weren't allowed to play when they should have been allowed to play, and that especially in the quarterfinals. Would it have sold any more tickets? Probably not. I think a lot of cricket fans don't want the 100. If we're really honest, a lot of county members don't want the 100 because of exactly what you've just pointed out to, John. And I think the Blast, I've actually enjoyed the Blast being in one block. Bang, it's done. Not waiting 6 weeks for finals day or a quarter final and finals day. It's done. It's out the way. Everybody's still in the sort of mindset of playing T20 cricket. Bosh, get the job done. So I don't mind that. I just think if England were more flexible, where they could let their players come out and play in the big competition, the big game, when you see your big superstars play, then I think it would have been a huge success. But we've got different priorities now in this country, and the priorities now are for entertainment. I don't even think it's proper cricket. It's entertainment. The 100 is entertainment. It's not proper cricket that anybody else plays around the world. We are coming out for 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks to make money and entertain. It's like a pop concert. That for me is what the 100 is, and I actually think that the cricket community has really rallied behind the Blast, and I think we've seen decent crowds, and I think more of a feel-good factor. I know I've seen loads more social media interaction around about the 100, about the Blast, rather than the 100, going to watch their side. So I'm sure the ECB will fudge the figures and say the Blast figures were down and the 100 figures will be up, but I don't think you can pull the wool over the eyes of very, very good county members who love their county, just because of the way. I think you're not in the minority when you've just thrown all that off your chest.
Well, I saw something that I found was really interesting. It was 2017. I was over in Brisbane ahead of the Ashes, and it was a media day. 4 or 5 of the Aussies were. It was the day that Tim Payne was announced he was back in the side. Can you remember? Everybody was shocked that Tim Payne was in the squad. Tim Payne spoke to the press, Nathan Lyon, a couple of others I can't quite remember. But essentially, the way they did it was that it was a big room, and there was all these different camera crews all stationed around, and these players were rotated round, and it worked very well. But I'm standing there listening to the Australian reporters, the TV guys and girls just chatting between themselves, and I found it really interesting because they were basically joking amongst themselves. I can't remember the exact broadcasters. I always get a bit confused with Australian TV, but there was a Channel 9 crew and there was a Fox crew, and they were just going back and forth, basically very good-natured. But essentially, Fox had the Big Bash, I think, and Channel 9 had the cricket, or the other way round. And they were basically poking fun at each other's coverage and making jokes about which tournament was better. And it was all very good-natured, blah, blah, blah. And I sat there and I thought, that's actually really interesting. You know, I find it strange in this country that essentially one broadcaster, and full transparency, of course, TalkSport don't have the right, so, you know, I'm bound to have a bit of a warped opinion on this. But essentially, why should the sport be monopolised by one broadcaster? It doesn't really make sense. From an ECB perspective, wouldn't you rather so essentially Sky, and they do a great job, we know that, looking like they might sign an extension to their deal, although from what I'm hearing, it's not quite as done a deal as maybe some have led to believe, but I bet it will be the case that they're going to continue for another 3 years. But from an ECB perspective, don't you think it would be better to sell, say, the Blast to BT, if they're interested, or Channel 4, and the 100 to Sky? You have two rival broadcasters who basically have got an incentive to make their product the absolute best it can possibly be, to be better as a broadcast spectacle than the other tournament.
Okay, so
if you were the ECB, wouldn't that be? I imagine that would make more sense than the situation that we have now.
So initially, Sky paid a premium for exclusivity. That's the key thing, I think.
But they can still have exclusivity of their tournament.
Yeah, but it's and when the new tournament was brought in, they had first refusal, didn't they? And the 100 was given to the BBC in part, or they paid for it, obviously, but there was a free-to-air element of it, and the relationship with Sky and the relationship between Tom Harrison and Sky was such that they were able to find a way through that. So I can understand how it's happened, but the point you make again about the cannibalisation of the game is very valid, and it is absurd that we have a situation where both broadcasters and governing body seem to want to demean the Vitality Blast so that the 100 is given every opportunity to be seen to be successful. And basically they lied about the figures last year. It didn't make a profit, not if you count all the costs. And they haven't judged the attendance numbers the same for the Blast and the 100. So, you know, we know that a lot of individuals involved in both organisations, and the BBC as well, actually, have staked their personal reputations on the success of the 100. And they're going to try and make sure that it is a success. And you know, something you said earlier, I kind of enjoy the 100. I like cricket, John. I really do. I don't think there's a conflict between going to a game and enjoying that and understanding the long-term negative effects that has elsewhere in the game. And I hope I've made that point again and again and again. Equally, I don't think there's anything that's been achieved with the 100 which couldn't have been achieved with the Vitality Blast. You know, you could have had double headers. Of course you could have had T20 double headers on the same day. And that, remember, wasn't some sort of genius tactic from the ECB. Originally, they meant to have them at different grounds. It was because of the pandemic and COVID protocols that they changed their mind. So that could have happened easily enough. T20 could have been put on free-to-air. I know I'm biased, but I still think that if you just show some cricket on free-to-air TV, people will fall in love with it because it's the greatest of bloody games. So that's why I will always remain confident and optimistic about the future of the sport. You know, if you put these tests that we've watched in recent weeks on TV, I honestly think they'd have found a new audience. Maybe not quite as quickly as T20 or the 100, but there's not a big difference between T20 and the 100 once you're in the ground. You kind of, it's the same thing. So I don't, you know, the point being that there was exclusivity in the agreement, coming back to the original point, and that's why you've reached this situation. But it is absurd that you now have a situation where there is very little attempt to market the Blast, and that's what, you know, I agree with Harmy as well. I think traditional cricket lovers have rallied to its support. Whether that's enough, I don't know, because we're always after this mythical new market. And when you've got games, you know, I wrote about this on the day of the quarter-final at Edgbaston, so if people want to read it, do. But pretty positive that the schedule that Surrey had this year, the fixture list they had, was designed to ensure that they couldn't be as successful as previous years. Because I think their success has embarrassed the ECB. Because it's shown that all the investment and all the noise made about the 100 was unnecessary. And just one thing quickly on those quarterfinals. I thought, I'm a Somerset supporter. I love Somerset. Riley Russo has proved one of the great signings of the season. I thought he was an underwhelming signing. He's proved that wrong. He's been absolutely outstanding. On a level, though, I was still a bit sorry the way that Derbyshire capitulated. I think Mickey Arthur and team have done really good things there. They've taken a club that was, you were looking for signs of life. And they got to the quarterfinals, and they got to the, Nottinghamshire didn't. And look at their squad. So they deserve a lot of respect for that. And I hope that an awful day, let's be honest, they had an awful game, doesn't completely derail it. I think they just need more experience. It looked like they kind of lost it on the big occasion. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not close enough to have a really knowledgeable opinion. But that's what it looked as if it happened. And so I hope it doesn't derail, because there's something really good going on there. And all power to them.
George, can I ask you quickly about Leicestershire? Because they were docked 2 points and they actually would have played Surrey rather than Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that punishment?
So a lot of people...
Leicestershire have been docked more points than Yorkshire.
Yeah, a lot of people have got in touch with me about that and asked me to sort of get involved. And I haven't, because there's only so many hours in my day, and I'm sorry, because I know it's important. And I'm not close enough to it to give you a strong opinion. All I would say is this. They do have a track record of being penalised for relatively poor behaviour of their players. They were on a final warning. That is a factor. They probably have to reflect on that. Would it have happened to a bigger club is my issue. Would it have happened to Surrey or Yorkshire or Warwickshire or Lancashire, basically? I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I don't have an issue with it being done before the game. I thought if you're going to do it then, so people aren't supporting something under false pretences. But it completely knocked the wind out of their sails again. Was it good for the game in general? Doesn't feel it, does it? So I have a lot of sympathy, but I'm sure if they're honest, they would reflect that they are partially to blame. The issue about Yorkshire, I'm getting a bit tired of trying to defend the ECB process here because it's taking too damn long. But the point is that Yorkshire have only just been charged, and so that process isn't complete. They will be punished. There's no doubt about that. They will be punished. Whether it's going to be enough, whether it's proportionate for the extent of the... they're not going to be punished any more than Durham were for something that seems to me a lot more minor. So people who in Leicestershire who feel aggrieved, they have a point. But people who are saying that Yorkshire got away with it... And I just want one more thing on the Yorkshire thing. If the test match had been taken away from Yorkshire, the recent test match against New Zealand, there is a very, very good chance that club would have gone into administration. And if that had happened, it probably would have... The ownership of the club probably would have reverted entirely to Colin Graves, because he is the biggest creditor. So all he would have had to have said to the receiver is, I'll offer the amount that you already owe me, and he would have taken on, I think, the entire club. I don't think that would have been good for the sport. Without going into a lot more details, because I'll get another series of tremendously friendly letters. But you know where I'm coming from. And so I thought they are walking a very long and narrow path here, the ECB. But at some stage they've got to do something. And there's been a lot of apologies and a lot of admissions of guilt at Yorkshire, but they haven't actually been punished at all, and that doesn't sit right. And I can understand how Leicester supporters are very unhappy about it. But on a level as well, I am sitting on the fence here. You do have to control players. You do have to ensure that standards of behaviour on the pitch are okay. But did they behave worse than we see? Well, let's be honest. Virat Kohli, who quite often, or in the past, Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson. It does seem that it's a lot easier to crush the little guy, and Leicestershire are the little guy. So pretty uncomfortable about it, but I can't have a really strong opinion because I haven't had a chance to completely get to grips with it. Is that a reasonable answer?
The Yorkshire one for me. I'd like to get it. It's the timing of it. Just get it done and get whatever there's going to come next out the way, because while it hangs over. You see a Yorkshire haven't been punished, and people say a Yorkshire haven't been punished, and yeah, they're going to get punished, but individuals have been charged as well, and they're in limbo as well. Somebody who I love to bits because he was my captain, and I feel strongly on him. If Michael's done wrong, then he'd get punished if there's proof there. But I think he's the one that's getting punished at this minute in time. I'm not going to stick up for, because I don't know what he said, she said, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I see somebody who I'm very, very close to have to not give his opinion on cricket, which he has done for a lot of years, and he does it very, very well. So at this minute in time, I think Michael Vaughan's getting punished. Hogarth's not in the game. Yes, he got charged. Bresnan's gone around the world. They're not in the game. Michael was in the game, and he's not getting punished. He's getting punished because of what he's done. If he's done wrong, then the system will.
Do you know what? I agree.
Right path.
For what it's worth.
But I feel frustrated. I feel frustrated because one of my best friends, and somebody who I've got a huge amount of respect for because of the way he captained my team, and if it wasn't for Michael, a lot of us wouldn't have sort of had the team environment career path that we had. And I just got frustrated the other week when he got took off the airways, because I feel he's getting punished. I might be wrong. I'm not defending anything that's been done or been said. But at this minute in time, Yorkshire are going about their business. Individuals are going about their business. But I'm not listening to Michael Vaughan, who is one of the best broadcasters.
I think that's a reasonable point, Harmy. I think that it's in everyone's interest, including Azim Rafiq's, by the way, to get this resolved. And if people have to, if people to either clear their names or begin the process of penance, for want of a better word. So, I actually am completely in agreement with that. It's dragged on too long. The ECB process, and the PCA process, it hasn't really been fit for purpose. It really hasn't worked. And that's actually why I don't feel I've been able to do anything with Leicestershire, because that whole issue has taken over my life. Do I want to say this? I'm going to. You could not exaggerate how many phone calls I've taken from people who have worked in the game reporting to me their experiences of being discriminated against, basically on the grounds of race. Now, most of them don't want to go public. Some do, but most don't. They just want someone to listen to them. And the game has completely failed them. And a ridiculous situation where a bloody cricket journalist is fielding these calls utterly unable to help in most ways, completely unqualified to deal with the level of trauma that they have experienced. It is a nonsense situation. And the ECB have, it's been just about 5 years since Adil and Azim first reported their concerns. 5 years. And the only thing that's ever made any difference is embarrassing the game into moving. So it's been a hell of a mess, and Harmy and I probably don't agree on every detail of this issue, but on what he's just said there, I'm with him all the way. People are innocent until guilty. I mean, there was a Squire Patton Boggs report that did uphold some cases, of course, complaints, but basically people are innocent until guilty, and they deserve a right for this not to be hanging over them. And the people who have complained deserve the right to have those complaints and those hearings held. So they've got to get the hell on with it. And the delays, whether they're fearful of the consequences or whether they haven't ploughed enough resource into it, they've got to do it. And yet they're able to very, very quickly come down hard on Leicestershire. So that's why it leaves a bit of a funny taste, doesn't it? I couldn't say a lot more.
Okay, well, I think that brings us neatly to the end of this section of the show. Got plenty of questions that have come in, so let's get on to them in the mailbag.
The mailbag.
Okay, guys, well, let's get started with some of these questions. Actually, credit where credit's due, exclusively revealed in April, Dom Sibley has moved back to Surrey, or is about to, at the end of the season. Maybe he should have made the move already. He probably would have batted at 3 ahead of Tom Curran, who, by the way, actually batted really well. Dom Sibley has obviously gone back to Surrey, says Rainsborough, 1648. Is there a way back for him? With England, seems his approach is at odds with the Stokes-McCullum regime. George?
Yeah, there's a way back. I think Somerset were also after him, by the way. And I think that Somerset will today or so, but before this podcast comes out, I hope, have announced the signing of Andrew Mead, the former Warwickshire player who was playing for Saka, the Southampton Cricket Academy. So he's their second graduate to be signed by First Class County.
Oh, brilliant. I want to do a little bit more on that on the show, maybe, if we can,
love to.
George. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, yeah.
What, now?
So tell us
now or another time?
Well, you can talk about it now. Maybe
it's an amazing
viewers
thing.
and listeners aren't
okay,
completely
yeah, sure, because
what it is. We all hear
so
about
the South Asian
program, but
just quickly then, the South Asian Cricket Academy was set up following the research of Tom Brown, a PhD student at Birmingham City University. And he did a study on the number of people of from South Asian backgrounds playing recreational cricket, which makes up about just over 30% of the number of people playing cricket in the country, and the reasons so few of them get through to professional level. And I think there's an over-representation at all levels up to professional teams. So he wanted to look into that. He then got a grant from Birmingham City University, which is only £50,000, by the way, and set up this scheme where he is trying to enable people who maybe slip through the net, for want of a better word, to have a second chance. And there are some cultural issues, there are some dietary issues, there are possibly some discriminatory issues, and he's trying to find a way to get through that and establish a system whereby there's more equality of opportunity. One of the things that most impressed me about Tom Brown when I first met him was that I was reading his scheme and it jumped out on me. It is designed to be obsolete within about 5 years. So this is not a fella who's setting himself up for a job for life, which so many of these things do. This is a guy who's saying, no, if we do this and it becomes part of the main of the fabric of domestic cricket, there'll be no need for this. So he's trying to make himself obsolete, and I've got nothing but respect for him. He's absolutely passionate about it, and how many people will end up signing this year, I don't know, but I'd be surprised if it's not half a dozen. Now that's half a dozen potentially life-changing opportunities. And the most recent of these is Andrew Mead, who will go into the Somerset top order, or go into a fight for a place immediately. I think they've signed him. I think he signed yesterday. And he is potentially just what they need. You know, they've got a fantastically fun batting lineup, but maybe they need a bit of solidity. And takes me back to your question about Dom Sibley. You know, Ben Stokes has played a couple of his very, very best Test innings with Dom Sibley providing the foundations. There was one at Old Trafford and the one at Cape Town. And now at Cape Town in particular, Sibley I think made his maiden Test century. It was a good innings. Yep. And I think Ben Stokes, when he received the Player of the Match award, insisted that Dom Sibley share it with him. I don't know if that rings any bells. So I think Dom Sibley and Ben Stokes have a relationship and a mutual respect. And while he doesn't naturally seem the sort of player, you know, he doesn't have to be the Dom Sibley we last saw. Dom Sibley can keep developing himself as a player. We know he has aspirations as a T20 player. We know he's played quite a lot of T20 cricket. He is a much better player than the one who last played for England. But to be fair, he was a much better player when he first played for England. His game declined. I think that England like what they're seeing from Alex Lees. And I think what Alex Lees has shown is what Dom Sibley could show, you know, ever more positivity, a desire to develop and improve. And obviously they like Zach Crawley, whose last Test innings I thought was very good. So I'm not saying there's an immediate way back, but I don't think the door is necessarily shut forever on Dom Sibley. I think he's popular. I think he's hard-working. I think it's possible. England have been bailed out by miracles, really, 4 tests in a row. And it's been a lot of fun, and you wouldn't want to take anything away from that. But have they found a template for success long-term? I'm still not sure. I still think, because I'm a very dour, boring man, that you probably need a bit of solidity, and that actually a good game is built on defence. And I still think that there could be a role for people like Dom Sibley and Rory Burns, and others. Sam Robson is another. Those guys could still find a way back. I don't think the door's shut on him, not quite.
Harmy, your thoughts on Sibley, and also this from Stevie Wint1. Why does Billings get in a test side when he doesn't keep for Kent in red ball cricket? Keepers like Michael Burgess or John Simpson deserve a chance ahead of Billings. Kent bias.
Yeah, I must admit, I struggled with the Billings one. I think if Zach hadn't have played the innings he played in the second innings at Edgbaston, I think Sibley would have played in the first Test match against South Africa. I think he would have been brought back in. McCullum's already said this week he don't like baseball. I must admit I don't like that term either. I think all they've done is the mentality of the group has been freed up. I think a lot of contributing factors of that, one largely being COVID, so they can get about a bit and they can act like human beings again. And I think because of that, they look as though they've got the world off their shoulders. England players look as though they're so relaxed. They've got the world off their shoulders and freedom of expression. I think that is what I've seen in the 4 Test matches so far. And I think Sibley could fit into that, no problem. Be the best Dom Sibley he possibly can be, and he'll fit into that group. Not a problem whatsoever. Lees has got a defensive game in the first innings, and he's got more an expansive game in the second innings. I can see Sibley playing it like that, if need be, when he comes back in, and he will come back in. The Billings one, yeah, do you know what? I thought they had a chance. There's been a lot of talk about the sort of selectors and selecting panels and how they're going. I don't think they need selectors at this minute in time. I think they're going very, very good. They've got a big enough pool of players over the course of red and white ball to understand that they're the ones that can do the job. I don't think it'll be until the winter until they start picking other squads for other trips, development squads and everything, that the pathway through. I think they can buy themselves some time. The one person I would have picked this week possibly would have been Burgess over Billings, for the simple fact Burgess has done the right thing, which is score runs in county cricket. I don't know enough of him, whether he's good enough, if he has the game to play Test match cricket. I've not seen enough of him, but his numbers were stacking up, and I thought that he's only going to play once. Whoever was coming in was only playing once, because come next week or come 6 weeks' time, folks will be back in. Folks will be fit, he'll be firing, he'll be back into the group. Going back to Billings, and the only reason he played the first time was he was the only person with an English passport 900 miles away from a Test match venue with a pair of gloves that could catch the ball. He got a game. Does that say he's the next cab off the rank? I'm not so sure. I think a guy with a questionnaire is spot on. He doesn't even keep for Kent. Don't play first class cricket. I think that's just not the credibility of the selection model, but it just asks questions to say how have you get into that point? Are you just saying basically I don't care because there's one coming round the corner? Mo and Ali's coming round the corner. When people say, oh, well, he's not even playing for Warwickshire, he's just signed a white ball contract. This new management team will go, I'm not bothered if he plays 4-day cricket. I'm going to pick him because he's Mo and Ali and he's a good player. Does that sit well with players that are playing and trying to make themselves an England player by playing red ball cricket? I'm not so sure.
I think Sam got a wee bit lucky as well. I mean, he did actually drop Virat Kohli, and Joe Root thankfully caught the rebound. That's potentially a big moment to the game. So, look, why did they pick him? I kind of get it. I think they figured that he already knew about the environment and that he wasn't going to be overawed. Well, that's not ridiculous. And they also didn't want to start a new narrative about Johnny keeping or even Joss. So had Johnny Bairstow or Joss Butler kept, immediately I think Ben Folkes is looking over his shoulders. He knows that Sam Billings is coming in as a one-off. Sam Billings knows that he's coming in as a one-off. Maybe, had they picked anyone else like Burgess, who's doing terrifically this season, it would have been asking a lot for him to come in, get to know the environment, and also then be jettisoned. So, the question is very, very fair. Was it the right or wrong? I don't know. There's a grey area there that hopefully I've just sort of explained a little bit. Sam was seen as a bit expendable, and he also knows everyone and could fit into the environment comfortably very quickly.
We're running out of time. I want to just ask a quick question about Richard Gleeson, Harmy, just to give us your thoughts. And I think a lot of people know the story in its basic form. Made his first-class debut at 27 on the fringes of an England call-up. Was it last year before? Then he suffered quite a serious stress fracture. And then, of course, made his debut against India in that first T20, or second T20, and bowled particularly well. And again in the third one as well. But from an out-and-out bowler perspective, Harmy, I know Goffey was very complimentary before the game, saying of all the bowlers he'd seen on the circuit this year, he thought Gleeson was the one that was absolutely...
He wasn't going to be overawed by the occasion, even though it's India. And obviously it's England, played in front of big crowds and handled the pressure, bowling at the death. His skill sets were very, very good. His pace was what surprised me. He was touching 90 mile an hour. And when you are, it's not drinking at the sort of last chance saloon bar, but when you're at a point in your life, in your career, where you've got such a freshness in a way that, well, this is my one big chance. Not going to get another one. I'm going to enjoy it. And it looked as though that was exactly what his mentality was. It's not a case I'm not going to miss this chance. It's I'm going to enjoy this chance. Because sometimes you can get to that point and you can actually miss the chance by being too nervous, not exactly expressing yourself in the way that you had done for your county. I thought he did brilliantly. I thought he used the new ball very, very well, or the newer ball, the harder ball, very, very well. And we've seen for Lancashire that his death bowling is up there with anybody in world cricket, hitting the white line and bowling Yorkers and his change-up. So, for somebody who is 34-year-old, getting a chance to play for England, I think it's brilliant. Where does it go? It's interesting. Does he go has he put his hat in the ring for the World Cup? I actually think he has. I really do think he has, because I think there's a few fluffed their lines. I think there's a few bowlers who have been on show over the course of England's sort of last 10 T20 internationals.
Oh, yeah.
Who have been given a chance because the likes of Archer and Wood and a few others, Saki Mahmood, he fluffed his lines in the West Indies. And I think there's a few who have fluffed their lines. Gleeson didn't. He was given that one big chance. He's played in 2 games, and I think he comes back into the squad against South Africa. And if he does well there, he goes on the plane to Pakistan, and he's got a chance of going to the World Cup. And I'm chuffed to bits for him, because somebody who, with that sort of mentality, who has worked so hard, not just on the field to get himself in a position to play, but had to do the hard jobs off the field. And I'm not saying go to the gym or that. He's tried everything. He's been a factory worker. He's lived a life that some of these young guys that play cricket for England wouldn't even dream of understanding what sort of life the general public go through sometimes. And then there's a few of them with the silver spoons in their mouth and have just been told from the age of 15, you are the best cricketer, you are the best cricketer, you are the best cricketer. Well, sometimes come in left field where you have had to do manual jobs. You've had to work really, really hard to put food on the table. Sometimes they're the best mentality of players when it comes to later on, and they appreciate it more. And I think that's, for me, the beauty about what Richard Gleeson's done. And I think he's got a chance of a World Cup spot if he does well against Africa.
Just on that, he's an example too of the benefits of an 18-county system, because he got his opportunity with Northants before going to Lancashire. And he is there is a case, I think, for not playing him in any more internationals ahead of the World Cup. Now, I know that's a risk, but I think we've seen enough, and I think that his slightly unorthodox style is an asset. And it might be... He didn't seem to have masses... Correct me if I'm wrong, Harmy. He didn't seem to have masses of variation. Maybe you don't need it, but he's got a super Yorker. He's got decent pace. That slightly odd action, I don't know whether he's doing it on purpose or not. He angles the ball in, sort of skids it into the batter, mainly. But the one to Virat left him a bit, or at least held its own. Now, maybe if international sides see more of him, they will have an opportunity to work him out. So I wonder if you... And there's a couple of others you could do this with, you know. You know, Jake Lintop can't be a million miles away from getting an opportunity. And I wonder if it's the same thing. If the... Do you remember Kuldeep Yadav? The first few times he played against England, he made mincemeat of them. But actually, they got loads and loads of left arm wrist spinners into the nets. They realised that you could play him off the back foot as well. They just saw more of him. And he stopped being a force, really, or to the same extent. And I wonder if it might be the same with Gleeson. And bearing in mind the age he is, if there's a case for keeping him a bit of a hidden weapon. Maybe that's naive because there's so much footage out there already, but the footage isn't quite the same as facing people. So, I don't know, just a thought. What do you think about that, Harmy?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to protect the body as well. At the minute, we've got an asset that's working. Well, we've got so many prize assets that's not working. And I'm thinking, if Archer's fit, if Wood's fit, Ollie Stone is fit, and then you look at some of the other options, the left arm options with Reece Topley and whether Sam Curran, then all of a sudden Gleeson gets further down the pecking order. But these aren't fit; they're out the equation. I agree. I think when you look at what he's got, it's his execution for me. He's not got sort of a huge array of slow ball tricks, but his execution's brilliant. He hits length hard when he's got the newer ball, and when he bowls a Yorker, he bowls a Yorker. It's not sort of missed. He's not a yard out either side where a batsman can get underneath him. He nails it. And do you protect him? I think you possibly could do, but I think he needs to play as well. I think he needs to understand the environment. He goes and plays in front of 60,000 at the Adelaide Oval or 80,000, 90,000 at Melbourne against India in a quarter-final, semi-final. I still think he needs some exposure. So Pakistan could be the exposure. But first of all, I think we've got to congratulate the lad for the way he's gone about his career, not giving up, not giving in, and getting his chance to play for England. And when he got there, boy, did he not only did he enjoy it, he did very, very well as well. So good on him for that, and well done, Richard Gleeson.
Good stuff, guys. We're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks so much for your time. I enjoyed that cricket chat, and we'll be back next week as well. We'll be looking back at all the county championship games, which are Monday to Thursday this week. I've just seen that Yorkshire have won the toss and going to bat against Surrey. So we're recording this on the Monday. I imagine as it's released on the Thursday, Yorkshire will probably still be batting.
No, Worrell took a wicket in his first over, you'll be glad to hear.
Come on!
How many?
This is, you know, we're going to get all those too much Surrey comments.
Yeah, all I want to know
I haven't spoken about Surrey for 2 months.
All I want to know about Surrey Yorkshire this week is how many ice creams is Darren Gough going to have at Scarborough? Well, I reckon it'll be double. I reckon if it goes 4 days, it could be double figures.
Well, you'll see. Is he not? Is he not with you at the Oval?
He's with me at the Oval on Tuesday. Yeah, he comes down to the Oval with me on Tuesday. He's coming down Monday night, and then he's going back, I think, Tuesday for Wednesday morning. So he still could have double figures.
No, we'll see. Well, look, guys, we'll end it there. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Following On County Cricketer.